in the long haul. Today, we're going to unpack it all. Why women and men get married, the questions we should be asking before taking that step, and how to navigate an unfulfilling marriage. We'll also open up the phone lines and hear your thoughts. So join us on 07000 0915 and you could text or WhatsApp us on 08155 or 07031 756 937. I'll take those numbers again. So the phone lines to call are 07000 or 09155 and the WhatsApp number to text or WhatsApp is 08155 So let's go straight to the matter at hand. Why did you get married? And we'll start with the why. Why do women get married? Is it because of, well, most times it's because we're in love. Love and romance. We grew up on M&B, and I don't know what young children read now. They see Ali Queen or whatever, or even the videos that we watch growing up. You find that, oh, the man meets the woman, they fight, they whatever, and then one day they just find out they can't do without one another, and then they look for each other across the heart. They cross the oceans, they climb the mountains, and finally they meet and they fall in love again, and then they marry. Or we've watched all the Walt Disney films, the prince and the princess, the obstacles, but they just had that spark, when they met once, the first time they met, and afterwards they live and live happily ever after. Now, some of us are more realistic. Some of us is for security. And it could be security, could be both. I don't want us to, when I laughed, I thought, oh, a lot of people say, oh, it's financial security. But security could be emotional security too. You meet somebody that, yeah, can pay your bills, but you meet someone that you feel safe with. So there's love, there's romance, and there's security. That safety that you find in somebody, that assurance that you find in somebody, that understanding that you find in somebody, that friendship that you find in somebody, and I will say that for me, that's the most important reason to get married. That security, especially the emotional one, the finding someone that is safe enough to love. The person that has got your back, and friendship. And I was surprised during the week. I was on a WhatsApp group chat, and someone said, oh, they were told, especially in the religious circles, in the Christian circles, that, oh, they were told not to marry their friends. And I wondered, if you're not marrying your friend, who do you marry then? Is it your enemy? They were taught that, oh, that we should look at the spirituality of the person, rather than the things that you have in common. But a lot of women marry for security, emotional and financial. And then quite a lot of us marry for social expectations, especially after we've reached a certain age. They tell you that, oh, your biological clock is going, you have to get married on time so that, you're not too independent. And then also so that you can have children, because a woman's egg starts to reduce, the older she grows. But science is showing us so many things now and telling us that sometimes it's not just the cause, and that women that give birth later even do much, much better, physically, and even in training the child. So let's keep our fingers crossed as to that. And then we have pressure, that the pressure from family, for example, maybe your mother married at a certain age, you married at a certain age, you're telling your child to marry at a certain age. That's what happened to me. My mother married and had me when she was 25. I had my first child when she was 25. And when she turned 25, she said, Mommy, don't worry, that's not going to happen. But sometimes you have that pressure. And if I had insisted, oh, you must get married at the or give birth at the age I gave birth, to you, then she just goes into it to fulfill all righteousness, so to speak. And then we have society too, saying that you must be married at some particular time. A woman that is not married at a particular time is looked, in as if she's wasted her youth away. Oh, she must be proud. Oh, she must be very, she's just not it. So a lot of women feel that pressure, to marry. And then also in religious institutions, it's better to marry than to born. So if you're the kind of, you think, oh, you're even in this person, you're in a relationship with this person, you've not looked at that person, you've not even looked at the fact that do you have much in common apart from your religion, apart from your belief system, your religious beliefs. And I've seen so many people that did that while I was in university. They met in fellowship. They, thought, okay, we're Christian, you're a Christian, we love God, and we'll get married. And they got married. So pressure from religious institutions, because of course we were being taught, to have sanctity of our bodies, don't go into fornication, adultery. So a lot of people marry because of sex, actually, and a lot of people marry because of pressure, from family, society, and religious institutions. And then a desire for children or to raise a family. You just think, I just need someone to love me for myself. I want my children to love me. I want everybody to love me. I need somebody of my own to love me. So, you know, um, a lot of people do that. And so, fear of loneliness or the stigma of being single. The older I grow, I find out that companionship is very important and loneliness is a real thing. But a lot of people, especially people that are not married, do not know that quite a number of people are married but can be lonely. So you could be lonely, married, and still be lonely. And so a lot of us go into marriage thinking, oh, I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be alone, maybe at my age or even maybe in old age. I just have, there's a adage that says that even if it's that you find someone to fight with, you won't be alone. And so some people just go into that because they don't want to be alone. They can't afford to be alone. I know somebody that can't sleep alone, so she must have somebody sleep in a room with her. And a lot of people just get married for that. And a lot of women are like that. Now, why do men get married? Because we get married, our reasons might be similar, but in a way they're distinct. And so a lot of men, the reasons we might marry for the same reasons, but for in different ways. And so a lot of men get married for stability and companionship. So I said a woman will get married because of fear of loneliness, but a man will get married for stability and company. There's something about a woman that just makes you stable. So a lot of men look at their lives and say, oh, you know what? I've gotten to the stage where I need some stability. I need some order. I need some structure in my life, and then they get married. They look for the person that they think can bring that structure, that can bring that order, that can bring that stability, or that even has that aura. Some people marry for aura, and I'll tell you a story on that. I remember having a client, and one day we went to visit him, and he said, oh, that he got married and he and his wife got separated. And after she left, everything for him went down. His business just went down. And he was told, I don't know who told him, he was told that he had to go back to get her. And so his business could pick up as she had favor or luck surrounding her. And true to type, he went back, begged her, she came back, business picked up. So some men do get married for reasons like that, for stability, for companionship, a partner, someone to help with family, someone to help with household responsibilities, somebody to just be there, and then it's a status thing after a while. Social image, marriage is a marker of maturity for men. Some promotions will come with marriage. Even at the workplace, they will tell you that they need you to be married to be able to, take this position and this post. So a lot of men marry for the social image. mark of maturity, success. Then the desire for legacy. You want heirs, you want someone to carry that name of yours. You want children to, but some people to love. But a woman has children because she wants to replicate herself mostly, or she wants someone to love her back unconditionally. A man wants children mostly because he wants that desire for legacy. He wants a heir. He wants to be able to say, oh, I left something apart from material or physical assets in this world. I left someone to carry on that noble name. And of course, for cultural and religious expectations. And love too. Love too. Let me not leave the men out. Love. Men marry for love, though sometimes not the romantic kind we see in movies. So, what was your answer to yourself and to everyone who has asked you this simple question that often catches people off guard? Why did you get married? Not how did you meet, not when did you know they were the one, but why? Why? Why did you take that leap? Stand before witnesses, make vows, commit yourself to another person. What stood the person out from the rest of all the other toasters and all the other ladies that were, angling for your attention and for commitment from you? What made your decision a compelling one? For some of us, the answer rolls easily over our tongues, out of our tongues. We married for love, we married for companionship, a desire to build a family. For others, especially who have been married for years and have seen the highs and lows of marriage, we take a deep breath and answer. And sometimes the answer, we can't even understand the answers. And then there are some of us that we just hesitate. We say, you know what, let me go and think for a while, because their silence is heavy with unspoken thoughts that they might not want to acknowledge to themselves or to others. Now, I would answer the question to my viewers. So if you had asked me the question, why did I get married? I'll have told you I married for love. Yeah. I married my friend, you know. We shared a lot of common things, apart from our beliefs. We had a love for books, we had a lot of music, we talked about everything and anything. And I think for the most important thing, I think I would have married him because he understood and wanted me more than any other person. And then he accepted me for who I was. That was very big for me at the time I married. Now, if you had asked me the question, maybe years later, I would have responded that I really didn't know. I couldn't pinpoint it. I couldn't put in words what I felt about my husband. Both of us had evolved over the years. And although my intense need to be understood, wanted, and accepted had waned a bit, we still cared for one another. And he was still the person that understood me. So despite all the ups and downs, I would have said I married him because of who he was at the beginning of our relationship, and maybe because we had a long and intricate history. And as the saying goes, deep waters run wild. But the truth is that we all marry for different reasons, and not one reason supersedes the other. So far, it's what we want. The mistake most people say is that, or most people make, is that they don't really know the reasons why they get married. They're not really sure of the reasons why they get married, or they get married because someone told them to. So there's somebody that says that, oh, I got married to this person because my pastor said it was God's will for me. Or because the person came to me and said, oh, I had a dream and I had a vision and we were together in that dream and we entered a car together. And by the time you interpret it, okay, the car is marriage, you and the person, and then you get married. So let me ask the question, and I'd like to hear from you. You know, do people do people choose who we get married? When people choose, can people choose who we get married to? And when they ask us, will we say that's why we got married? Is it maybe because our parents chose our partners? Maybe because we had matchmakers, because there's some cultures like the Asian cultures where we have people that are professional matchmakers. So would you say that I got married because somebody else, told me this was a perfect match for me? And I'm not beating down that system or that culture, because it works for some people. We see a lot of arranged marriages work, you know, and those that were not arranged not work. So it really depends. But I'm just asking you to ask yourself today, and I want to hear from you. Why did you get married? So you can either call us, you can either send a voice note, you can call us on 07000 or 09155 You can send a message on 08155 You can also comment live on YouTube, because we're on YouTube on WFM 917. Whatever means of communication you choose, will be here waiting for you. And as we wait, I want to ask a question, because I understand that I'm talking to not only those that are married, but also those that want to get married. So I'm going to ask you the question so that you don't fall into the trap that a lot of us that are married are falling into. For our younger listeners and even those considering remarriage, and that's important because some people have been married, they're divorced, they're widowed, they're separated, whatever it is, and they're reconsidering remarriage. Now, there are some critical questions I think you should ask yourself before getting married. Why do I want to get married? A very important question, a question that we don't ask often, especially because of the other reasons that I've asked, the reasons that are born out of societal pressure, family pressure, age. So why do you want to get married? Is it because you can't sleep alone? Is it because you need companionship? Is it because you need a maid? Ask yourself that question. Is it because all my friends are getting married? I'm tired of being the um is it first lady or chief bridesmaid? Is it because my younger brother or my younger sister has gotten married earlier than I did and I just need to get married? Why really do you want to get married? You should ask yourself that question. Now, the second question you should answer that question, because it's a question that is going to take you throughout the marriage. That if you can answer that question for yourself, then you will make the right choices. Then you would, align your values with the person that you want to get married to. Then even when you get married and the marriage goes through the ups and downs, that marriage will inevitably go through, you'll be able to answer the question why you got married, and you'll be able to answer the question also if you don't want to get married again. But that's a chapter for another day. That's a topic for another day. So the second question, I like a young person that hasn't gotten married before or that wants to remarry is do I know myself well enough to choose a partner for life? And that's a very important question too, because a lot of us don't know ourselves well enough. And that's the truth. I personally think, and I say it a lot of times, without any research backed, without having seen any analysis, but having talked to a number of women, both old and young, that a woman really does not know herself until she's in her 30s. I got married very early. I got married 22 going on 23. And I can say for a fact that I didn't know myself when I got married. I was just lucky that I got married for the right reasons for me. I thought of what I wanted. I knew why I was getting married. I was getting married to a friend. I was getting married because I liked the person, because we had the same values, we had the same interests, you know. But I didn't really know myself. And because I really didn't know myself from the beginning of the marriage, there were things that I accepted that I wouldn't have accepted if I'd gotten married much later. There were things that I didn't want, but there were things I wanted, but I didn't even know what I wanted, out of the marriage and out of the person that I married. So are you self aware? Do you know exactly who you are? Forget about the other person first, because it's your marriage first before it's our marriage, if you get what I mean. So what exactly do you know myself well? What kind of partner do I want? What kind of partner would be the right fit for me? I'm an extrovert. Do I'm someone that doesn't like anyone, and these are questions I'm asking. I'm not talking about myself personally, but you're somebody that doesn't want that can't stand possessive men. And that's a real thing for me. So I can't stand a man telling me, and I knew this right from when I was a teenager. that I didn't want anybody who telling me, you can go here, you can't go there, you can, so I knew that I wasn't going to go out with someone that was controlling. There was no way it will work. So I knew that by myself. But do you know that? And there's some women that want a man to tell them, what to do and what not to do, and that's all fine. I'm not saying my preferences are the right preferences. We're all different. We're all unique, and so you must choose what is right for you, not what is right for me, not what is right for your friend, not what is right for your brother or your sister, not what is right for your family, but what is right for you. That's the second question. So the first question for those just joining us is, why do I want to get married? The second one is, do I know myself well enough to choose a partner for life? Am I self-aware? And the third one, or do I even know where I'm going to? Do I have an idea of my future? Because a lot of times, what happens in marriage? A man marries somebody. He says, "Oh, okay, I want to marry." Let me give an example. A lady from the village, because the city girls, their eyes are too wild, So he marries somebody from the village, and then the person comes into his life, and then he gets promoted. And then he comes into big Lagos corporation, and then he looks at the girl from the village and says, "You can't fit into my lifestyle. You can't fit into the place that I have." And then we start to wonder, but she's been with you all this while, she's done this, but the truth of the matter is that at that point that he is at, the marriage is not serving its purpose. So do you know yourself well enough to choose a partner for life? Do you even know where you're going to? Do you have a vision for who and what you want to become before you get into that? I want to get married. I want to get married, because a lot of people have gone before you, and a lot of people are wishing they are out of it. But so the third question you should ask yourself before you get married: am I getting married to escape something? And that's a very big question. A lot of times we get married to escape something. Either our parents, maybe they're too strict, I can't live with my father, I can't live with my mother. So you get married, the guy says, "Oh, yeah, let's start life." And then you just an escape route. Maybe it's in an abusive situation, maybe it's poverty, maybe it's family pressure, maybe it's even sex. You're a Christian girl, you're in fellowship, and you've been taught that, oh, no fornication, and you just want that license. You like this guy fairly enough, and you don't think there's anything bad, and you have that chemistry, and so you marry just because you want to sleep with somebody. Men do it. Women also do it, and then loneliness, especially and I will talk to those that want to remarry. You're widowed, you've been separated, you've been divorced, and you've tasted life as a married person. You have those physical and intimate needs, and you're thinking to yourself, I can't be alone. And you're maybe getting on in age. And is this how my life is going to be? Okay, let me just marry for somebody to be around me. So a lot of people marry for different reasons. Are you getting married to escape something? It's a question that you should ask yourself. And then, do you share the same core values? Now, very, very important. And I think I wrote a piece on that some time ago, that I would prefer someone that I share the values with than even somebody that I shared the same religion with. I got a bit of a backlash. Some people said, "Oh, no, no, religion is important." And I agree. We must have the same beliefs. But beyond the beliefs, I think, are the values. And we must we must understand that it's not the religion that makes the man or the woman, but it's the values that make the man and the woman. You can be very religious and be very unkind as a person, very mean spirited, but you can be very, well, not, I'm not saying an atheist, but you might be a minimal, like we used to say in those days, minimal Christian, and you believe in God, but you're not the Jim. You're not carrying the Bible on your head or the Quran on your head, and you're a kind person. I think we should look more into the values. Do you share the same core values? Because it's better to marry, it's better to be alone, really, 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 than to marry somebody that you will have conflicting values with now and in the future. Then also, how do you handle conflict? So that's another question you should ask. How are you both handling conflicts? Are you handling conflicts in the way that is healthy? because conflicts will always come. Are you having those difficult conversations? I see a lot of, and I was there too, I must say, when I was much younger, because I married, like I said earlier, quite young. And I find out that we don't talk about those difficult conversations. We don't talk about finances. We don't talk about sex. We don't talk about, we just assume that these things will work out, because we love one another. But that is always a wrong assumption. We must agree about a lot of things. We must agree on children. We must agree on money, at least to some extent. We don't have to agree fully. We're not, marriage is not about turning you into a yes man or a yes woman, but you must have areas where you agree on parenting, very important, on your in-laws, very important, on your gender roles. What is it that a man does, what is it that a woman does. Society has encumbered us with so many things that we think, oh, this is a man's role, this is a woman's role. And so, but when we get into marriage, we find out that, men, it's a people's role. Whoever can do this thing should do it. A man is not necessarily the head of the house when it comes to finances. His wife could do better. So those are things that we must look better. And then also, am I ready to give as much as I expect to receive? A lot of times, the bane of most marriages is selfishness, and that's the truth. So are you ready to give as much as you expect to receive? What are you going to be putting in? Like they say nowadays, what are you bringing to the table? So are you saying, I'm bringing all of myself to the table, or part of myself, or a quarter of myself, or whatever? But those are the things that you're going to be thinking about. And then finally, it's not the last question, but it's the last question for today's session. Do I truly like this person beyond love or lust? And that's when it comes to how to love, how to like the person that you love. There was a book like that I saw, how to like the people that I love. Because you could love somebody and you will love them because they're family. You could love your brother because your family, you will always be there for them. You could love your parents, because they're family. You could love your cousins because they're family. But do you really like them? Do you look behind and beyond and say to yourself, if I had this person, if this person was in my blood, will I really like them? Will I keep this relationship with them? So those are things that you must ask yourself. Do I really like this person beyond love? Because love is a chemistry. Chemistry. It's a physical thing. It's physical attraction, and it will wane. There's no doubt about it. We change, our bodies change. It will wane. Or is it lost? Do I really like this person I want to go into? Because the truth is, weddings last a day, but marriage is a daily decision. I'd like to hear from you. Join us on 07000 and 09155 Now, let's talk about timing. Because the question, today's topic is, why did you get married? So, what do I want to say about timing? Do you marry early? Do you marry late? Like I said earlier, for those just joining, I married 22 going on 23. So that was quite early. And you'll ask me, why did I get married? I just thought to myself, I'd met someone that I loved. I'd finished school. I was I didn't start I was working. I'd finished NYSC. I went to school early. I finished by 21. I was called to the bar. I'd started working. I hadn't made money, but man, what else was left, And I'd met someone that loved me. So I married early. Were there advantages? A lot. Were there disadvantages? A lot. And I want to talk about some of them. Now, the advantages. I'll do the the good thing first. The ability to grow together and build a shared life is a major advantage of marrying early. It's you know, it's growing up with somebody, and it was good. It was good. I wasn't I we went all over the place. The dating circle, or the dating series, or the dating game can be a very dangerous game. So getting settled early helps you to focus, to it matures you earlier. You take on responsibility earlier, and you just focus. When you have a child on the way, as a young person, you're not going to parties. It's not the time to start going to parties, and jumping up and down in your 20s, which you should do, and which is one of the disadvantages too of marrying early, which I will get back to. But it just helps you to build a more purposeful life, in the sense that you're more responsible. Now, more fertile years for those of us that want children, so you have, as they say, a woman's biological clock. I said earlier, they say it runs the older we grow. But science is telling us now that more women are getting babies much later in life, and they're doing a better job of it. And that is the truth. But also with children, it gives you now, by over 50, and by the time I was 50, one or two, I'd finished paying school fees. So unlike somebody that is going to be 60, 65, 70, and still be paying school fees. But I was lucky and privileged in the fact that my children came when I wanted them to, because some people marry early and still have to wait a long time for children. So, but those are one of the advantages. You get done with school fees in record time, and when your mates are, still toiling with university amounts and everything, man, you're spending yourself on yourself, rightly so. And then it's culturally approved for women, especially, that we get married. Less baggage. Like I said, the dating game can be a game full, is a pool full of sharks. So you have less baggage, less body counts. Is that the word? And fewer past relationship wounds. So, what's the disadvantage? And those are just some of the advantages of getting married. The disadvantages, like I said, just flip it in some way. There's emotional immaturity because you've not grown. I keep on saying a woman does not know herself until she's in her 30s or late 20s. So when you marry without being self-aware, when you marry without even knowing yourself, there's a problem. There's a difference. I was listening to a podcast, and someone was saying that, the if you have different children, no matter their ages, maybe you have 2 years apart, those children are parented by different parents. Why? Because you're a different person yourself. 2 years makes a difference in emotion, in your growth, even in your emotions. You just wake up one day and say, why am I bothering about this? It really doesn't matter. But earlier on, you find out that you were so bothered about some things, and then later in years you look back and say, why was I so bothered about that situation? So emotional immaturity, and that's one of the banes of a lot of marriages, because emotional immaturity isn't even sometimes an age problem. Once you're not married, you're not emotionally mature, you won't make a good marriage, because marriage involves a lot of closing your eyes to sometimes silly behavior. And so also rush decisions made under pressure. Financial instability, that's another one, because definitely when you get married early, except you're getting married to someone that is more stable. So there's a bit of years, definitely, maybe 10 years, 5 years between you and whoever you're getting married to. Financial instability is a big issue when you marry early, because you basically have nothing. And a lot of times we forget, especially when we're in love, that we have to eat. And so when you find yourself alone, because society will say, oh, you are married, you should be able to cater for yourself, and you should be able to, so society is going to say, you're married, nobody's going to come and give you money. Especially your parents, they will say, thank God somebody has come to take this person away from me. So financial instability is very, and that kills marriage, especially when children start coming into it unplanned, or sometimes it's an accident. Yeah, but when you start to have all those responsibilities, there's rent, there's clothes to buy, there's baby food to buy, you're married early, you're not emotionally mature, it's a recipe for disaster a lot of times, and sometimes it shipwrecks the marriage. So what are the advantages of marrying later? you know um did I, yeah, so what are the advantages of marrying later? I've said the disadvantages. Yeah, yeah, okay. Thank you. I'm talking to my producer. You know, and the advantages, of course, more emotional and financial maturity, clearer understanding of yourself and what you want in a partner. You're likely to make more deliberate, less impulsive decisions. Mm, mm, mm. So I hope that has answered some of your questions about what you should look and why you should marry, and maybe not your questions, but it has helped you to give a structure or to look at it properly, whether you want to get married early or you want to get married later. And that's for the unmarried, especially for those who are yet to get married, and much, much more, especially for those who've been married before and who want to go back into the dating pool, especially because they think they need a partner. And we all need companions, but it's better to be to be safe, to be alone, than to be married and unsafe and lonely. Now, I'll be talking to those who are already married but find themselves thinking this isn't what I expected. And so that question, why did I get married? Because you just wake up one day and you look at your spouse, maybe they are brushing. you know, when I say brushing my mind, I just remembered my husband had this irritating habit, of clearing his throat every time he woke up. It was so loud, that when we first got married, we had a neighbor, so we stayed like in a self-contained. And one day the neighbor came to meet me and said, "What's that noise that I hear every early in the morning?" And it was my husband's clearing his voice. So, sometimes you just look at him and say, how did I marry this person? Because you never know a person fully until you start to live with them. You never know a person fully until you start to live with them. So, no matter our reasons for getting married, reality often looks different from expectations. The man you married for love may become distant, leaving you feeling like a single woman doing life alone. The woman you married for companionship may become more focused on motherhood or career, neglecting your needs. The excitement will fade, routine sets in, and at some time we all find ourselves wondering, is this really what I signed up for? Now, one of the hardest things to accept in marriage is that both we and our partners will change. And we will change in ways that we may not even phantom. I've done things, you know, that I never, if you had told me, Tara, would you do this? I would have said, lie, never, you know. But I found myself doing them and wondering and saying, oh, now I understand why other women did this. A man would find himself saying, I can never talk to my wife like that. I can never, and then you find himself saying, oh, now I understand why my uncle or my father did this. So people will change. All of us will change. And we'll change in ways that we cannot phantom, we can't even control in some ways, and sometimes we can't even understand unless we're very self-aware. The person we were and the person we married at 25 will not be the same person at 40. You won't be the same person at 40. Your needs will have changed. Your values sometimes your beliefs will have changed. A lot of things will have changed. Priorities will evolve, and we will outgrow some things and grow into some other things, especially as we become older in age and more sure of who we are and what we want out of life. And most times, because change comes and it will come, it often brings resentment, a feeling of being trapped, a feeling of thinking I could have done better with myself. I didn't choose right, because we can't get what we wanted, or because the other person seems to be getting more out of the marriage. Marriage, I tell you, can be very fulfilling, but it can also be lonely, frustrated, and disappointing. And if that's you today listening to me, you're not alone. There are a lot of people. You see, all this Instagram, all this Facebook, social media posts. I remember something that made me laugh some years ago. I know somebody that had a terrible relationship with her husband. In fact, she left the house. It was a big case of domestic violence and everything. And it was common knowledge. And then maybe 6 months after, I saw a lovely post on Facebook to my husband and and I was like, is it not this person? Is it not this person? So please forget all those things that we see on social media. I'm not saying that they're not wonderful marriages. They are. There are quite a number of wonderful marriages around, but there are quite a lot that, just show us outwardly that they're wonderful, but inside is not. So if you're in your marriage and you feel you're not fulfilled, just know that you're not alone. And there are some few things that I want you to know. One, you're not a failure for feeling this way. Marriage is hard work. I think is the hardest work ever, because you get to evolve in a role that you cannot change. So you get to evolve in a role that, your wife, your husband, you can't change that role, but you're evolving. Your mother, your daughter, you can change when you're a daughter. You have milestones. You're crawling today, you're going to school tomorrow. You can change. But in marriage, you're evolving in that same role. So don't feel guilty. Don't feel like a failure for feeling the way that you're feeling. You know, many people feel like you do, but they don't just talk about it. Now, two, you have to reconnect with your why. What made you choose your partner in the first place? And that's why that foundation is very important. Values, I said, I would take values over the religious beliefs. Can your foundation be rebuilt? If you had the same values, you had shared interests, shared hobbies, things in common, when you feel that urge, to pull out of the marriage, to ask yourself, why did I marry this person? Those things will come up. If you're married, your friend, I will tell everybody for free. Like I said, I married my friend, but at the time when my marriage was on shaky grounds, the romance fled, and it was that friendship that carried the relationship to the time where we could rebuild the romance and the love and the chemistry and everything. So reconnect with your why. Now, communicate, even if it's uncomfortable. We don't like having difficult conversations, and many people suffer in silence. So, start first. Have that honest conversation with yourself, about why you feel so unfulfilled in this marriage, and then with your spouse. I've discovered that resentment thrives in silence. If your marriage isn't meeting your expectations, talk about it. And it's not just saying, you don't make me happy anymore, but deeper conversations about what you both need and how to bridge the gaps. Avoid blame and focus on solutions. Then rebuild yourself. Sometimes the solution isn't to fix the marriage, but to rediscover yourself. And I did that, when my marriage was in problems. I went out by myself. I learned how to dance salsa. I picked up my hobbies that I'd left, because I was busy and because of motherhood. So a big mistake we make is expecting our spouses to be our everything. Our happiness, our self-worth and fulfillment should not rest solely on our marriage. Pursue hobbies, friendships, personal growth. When you are fulfilled as an individual, you bring a better version of yourself into your marriage. And lastly, I would say seek help, or therapy, counseling, everything. Seek help. Don't isolate yourself. If you can handle it by yourselves, don't hesitate to seek help. Therapy, counseling, like I said, there's no shame in admitting that marriage is hard and that you're struggling. Instead of resenting the change and fighting it, it'll be wise to find ways to grow and enjoy life together. And then know your limits. If the marriage is emotionally or physically abusive, you may need to consider an exit. Staying miserable isn't noble, it's harmful. So, in closing, what's my piece of advice on life with Tara today? You know, to the young and unmarried people, I'm going to give both of us advice. So, to the young and unmarried, take your time. Marriage is not a race. Don't marry because everyone around you is doing it. Marry because you're ready emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and financially. To the married, if it's good, nurture it. If it's rocky, don't pretend, get help. If it's painful, protect your peace. Your happiness matters. Sometimes, remember, marriage is not the prize, you are. And as we wrap up today's show, I want you to carry this with you. It's a beautiful thing, marriage. That thing called marriage, beautiful. But only when it's based on truth, readiness, and shared values. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to admit disappointments. It's okay to want more. If you're single, married, or somewhere in between, your journey is yours. Take ownership for it. And so maybe lastly, to those who didn't get married for the right reasons, or maybe you did and life has happened, and now you're looking at that your spouse and wondering how you got there. If you're feeling unfulfilled, it may be time to redefine what marriage means to you. Maybe it's not about being madly in love, whatever that means, every day, but about having someone who's got your back. Maybe it's about companionship rather than fireworks. The real question I think we should go today with isn't why did you get married for those that are married, but it's what will you do with the marriage you have now? The key is not in having the perfect marriage, but in learning how to navigate its imperfections. And sometimes the best thing you can do is shift your focus, not just on what your marriage was supposed to be, but what you can still build from where you are. Thank you for spending today with me on Life with Tara. Let's keep having those honest conversations with ourselves and with our significant other. Until next time, which is Sunday at 1 p.m., take care of yourself and each other. Bye, everyone.